Noah Syndergaard will never be the same. The Mets misused him when he was younger. Okay? When you're throwing sliders at 93, 94 miles per hour, off-speed pitches, change-ups at like 87, 86, and you have guys like Jacob deGrom throwing 100 miles per hour in the later innings, you're not handling your pitchers right. Since then, Jacob deGrom has had elbow and shoulder problems, okay, arm problems. Syndergaard's had arm problems. Steven Matz has had Tommy Johns and has had arm problems. Should we go on?
Every pitcher this year has been hurt at some point besides Senga.
They have had problems keeping their pitchers healthy. And one of the reasons why is when your dominant young pitchers can throw as hard as they can, you don't step in and say, listen, we want to keep you for a long time. We want to keep you safe for a long time. We want you to pitch for the next 10 to 15 years on this team. We want you to slow the ball down. We want you to learn about control. They didn't do that with Jacob deGrom, and maybe that's why Jacob deGrom left, because they pushed Jacob deGrom. They pushed Noah Syndergaard. They pushed the Dark Knight. I call him the Dark Knight because he's really, really dark at night, okay?
Yeah, he disappeared into the night after about 4 years.
Yeah. So they've had a tremendous amount of young talent, and it never worked out. It never worked out.
And again, Syndergaard was the one I think that had the best stuff on paper when he was a prospect.
I thought Wheeler did.
You thought Wheeler did?
Yes,
Okay.
and I have always said that. Me and Mikey C, we used to argue. He had Jacob deGrom. I had Zach Wheeler. And honestly, if you look at all the pitchers, Zach Wheeler is the best pitcher out of all of them. If you look at
for sure. Yeah.
Right now, I mean, Jacob deGrom is still pitching very well. I know he's not been healthy with Texas, but hey, guess what? The Texas Rangers are in first place in their division.
And their starting pitcher's actually been really good this year.
And Jacob deGrom is 2-0. He has, I think, the lowest whip in the majors right now with a 0.76 whip.
And a small sample, yeah.
But it doesn't matter.
Right.
His whip is low. That's low.
No, he's pitched well. Besides his first start, he's pitched very well.
And his ERA is what, 2.64 or something like that?
He pitched really well since that rocky first start, and then he had like one bad inning in his second start, but then he settled in after that. I think he allowed 3 runs in the first and then settled in after that, and he was pitching great since then until he got hurt. But going back to the Mets, though, like the hype at the time was Harvey for a while in 2010, especially since the Mets had all those veteran pitchers that just retired. They had Pedro Martinez, they had Tom Glavine, so he was the young pitcher that was the big deal. deGrom was actually not the big prospect at the time. It was actually Rafael Montero, and Rafael Montero had that hype, and he turned out to be a bust. Now he's a good relief pitcher with Seattle and Houston. But Syndergaard was the one that seemed like had the best stuff, and when he came up, he had 90-mile-an-hour pitches that normally are off-speed pitches for other pitchers. But that kind of thing didn't last once he had all those injuries, and you lose velocity, like you said. So his sinker, I think, was the biggest one. 2 or 4 miles an hour. I think he lost 4 on that one, and that's a big deal.
Notice the two pitchers that everybody gave a nickname, the Dark Knight. No longer really. I think he is playing in baseball, but he's been all over the place.
No, I think he just retired this year.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So he's retired, who everybody thought was going to be the best out of all of them. And then Noah Syndergaard, who everybody thought was the second best out of all of them. The Thor, or whatever the hell, the Hammer.
Yep.
He's, right now, he has an ERA at 6.54. His whip's not that bad, 1.39, but that's nothing to brag about either. I mean, and 35 strikeouts in 52 innings when the Dodgers need him, I mean, Noah Syndergaard could be on his way out, too. I don't think he's been – how many teams has he been on since he's left the Mets? 3?
Yeah, he was with the Angels, then the Phillies, then the Dodgers.
I mean, 3 teams. So since he's left the Mets. So it's kind of, it comes back to you, and you look at the Mets and the organization. Everybody wants to blame the Wilpons. I disagree. It's not the Wilpons' fault that this is going. It was management. It's coaching. It's just everything. And it just hasn't worked out for the Mets. When you look, if we go back 7-8 years and we look at that rotation for the Mets, some people say it was one of the best young rotations of all time.
Yep, rotation of the future in baseball in 2014.
And that rotation never, ever, ever, ever really hit that high millennium top of the line pitching that we believe they were going to be.
Right. All 3-year peaks for Harvey and Syndergaard in the beginning, and then both of them had their injury issues. Syndergaard still pitched well after the first couple of injuries, but after the Tommy John surgery, you really could tell that his stuff wasn't going to age well because he relied so much on that velocity, the hard sinker especially too, and even that harder changeup. He was throwing changeups at the beginning of his career at like 92 mile an hour sometimes, and he could change speeds, and once that was gone, like it really is lost.